Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Dante, and I've always wanted to make a video about this topic, but I never really knew how to properly address it. That changes today, and the date of this upload has extreme significance. This isn't about to be one of my happy-go-lucky videos. This is going to be a very deep, personal video. So let's take it back to the mid-90s, about springtime. I was born in the late evening at about 11:30. My grandparents lived on the outskirts of St. Louis in a very tiny town, and this is where I would eventually call home. The home that I would share with myself, my mother, and my grandparents. 120 people. That's like a quarter of the people in my high school graduating class, maybe even a fifth. That's crazy. This town is tiny. I mean, it has a gas station. It doesn't even have a stoplight in it. It's, for some reason, has a post office, but I'm pretty sure that's because of all the little tiny towns around it, and they just kind of chose this one. Like, they kind of threw a dart at a map and said, that's the one, that's the town that's gonna have the post office. And it still doesn't have a stoplight in it. My biological father lived about 20 miles north of that house. The craziest part was, he wasn't the only one living in that house. And my memory is kind of hazy on this, so I'm going to try my best to remember the bits and pieces that I do know. In that house lived two other kids, who happened to be my half-siblings. My father allegedly had many mistresses, so I don't know how many half-siblings I have. I don't know how many women were in the picture. I just know that my mom wasn't the only one. But back to these kids. I was instructed to call them brother and sister. If you would have tried to explain half-siblings to 3 or 4-year-old Dante, I don't think he would have quite understood the concept anyways. My only clear memory is a split second where I'm sitting in the kitchen and I remember facing to my right and my biological dad was handing me one of those fun-sized boxes of Apple Jacks. 4-year-old Dante loved those. And present-day Dante loves those too. So somewhere around that age is whenever my biological father and my mother split up. I was so naive to the situation, and honestly I preferred spending time with my grandparents anyways. But the reality of the situation was, he was not a nice guy. He was married when he was with my mother. And that's just scratching the surface. So since my biological father and my mom split up, they would split up my time with me. My mom would have me during the weeks, and my dad would have me during the weekends. Mom during weeks, dad during weekends. Mom during weeks, dad during weekends. Mom during weeks, dad does something crazy. My dad says that my mom needs to come pick me up from his house. And then he runs off with me. I had been kidnapped. During this time, cell phones weren't as common as they are nowadays, so my mom called the police and they said that since his name was on my birth certificate, there was nothing they could do for her. He ended up calling several times to my grandparents' house, and my grandma somehow managed to convince him to bring him back to my grandparents' house. And it was insane because my mother literally had to hide in the field because of the fact that they were concerned that he was going to do something to her. I'm not going to get into details about how he's a horrible person, but he's not a nice guy. I don't know what his intentions were whenever he kidnapped me. I don't know if he was trying to use me as a weapon to get back at my mom. I don't know. So he brings me back to my grandma's house. And as time passes along, I get an ear infection one week. So my grandma reaches out to him and lets him know that I'm not feeling well and that she will go ahead and take care of him, and then they can rearrange the visit for a future date. So I stay at my grandma's house and rest up and get better. So I was ready for the trip to my dad's house the following weekend. He never came. And I waited, and he still never came. The next couple weekends, he never came. My mom went to court to get full custody of me. He didn't even bother to show up. The craziest part about it is I was completely unaware as to the life-changing event that had just happened to me. Shortly after he ghosted, I had heard that he got meningitis. Apparently it had affected his memory and other motor functions, just basic daily functions. So I don't even know if he would recognize me if I approached him today. But to test that, I would need to know where he's at, and that's something I'm unsure of also. My mom and grandparents tried their hardest to soften the blow, and honestly, they did an excellent job. My grandma would always have conversations with me and always try to teach me how to be a genuinely good person. And my mom helped with that as well. My grandfather did something that I will remember for the rest of my life. He stepped in to fill the void that my dad had left in my life. A void that at the time I didn't even know existed. He went out of his way to teach me how to read, how to write in cursive, how to read chapter books before I even started kindergarten. I was doing algebra at this age, and it was just insane. I was in the gifted program from elementary school all the way through high school, and I blame that on him. He would take me to the backyard and play soccer with me and just play in general. I just remember one day asking him, "Grandpa, why can't you move fast like me?" and he said, well, Grandpa's old and slow and can't move like you. And his arthritis made his hand shake, and that definitely didn't help when we played pickup sticks. But he still made sure to give his all whenever he was teaching me things and also just enjoying free time. At the time, I didn't really feel like he was my father. And now my two dogs are kind of playing on the couch, so I apologize if you hear a little bit of that. At the time, it didn't really feel like he was my father. I mean, I didn't even really feel the impact of my father leaving. My grandfather stepped in to fill that role, and honestly, looking back at it, I am so grateful for all the things that he had done for me. And to be honest with you, at the time, I didn't even know how much I'd appreciate that. As I'm wrapping up kindergarten, my mom breaks some news to me. And this is also some very life-changing news. My mom had met a guy, and we would be moving much closer to St. Louis. Meaning that I would have to say goodbye to all of my friends in my hometown that I grew up with. Meaning that I would also have to have a lot less memories made at my grandparents' house. So we moved, and my mom decided to get married to this guy. And he wanted me to call him Dad. He didn't act like a dad though, and at the time my mind did not understand or comprehend that completely. I always had my grandpa as my paternal role model. He was the one teaching me how to be a man. He was teaching me how to grow and develop in my studies. And my stepdad, he wasn't doing those things. As the years went on, it became more and more clear that he did not care. I had a Game Boy Advance, and one day, out of nowhere, he decided to pick it up and just smash it on his knee. Once he was done smashing it, he threw it across the room. I got a C on my report card in middle school, and he tried to confiscate my phone. So before he did so, I went ahead and took out the SIM card so that he couldn't have access to any of my friends' text messages. And whenever he tried to do just that, that's whenever he smashed my phone on the counter. I went to a DARE dance in middle school. And if you're unfamiliar with DARE, it's basically Drug Abuse Resistance Education, I believe it's what it stands for. DARE is the program that kids went through to, learn that drugs are bad. They would put on dances that had games and other fun activities. So I went to see this girl that I liked at the time, and she kind of just brushed me off all evening and hung out with someone else. I had never really experienced heartbreak before, and I needed some advice on how to handle that. So I called my mom to pick me up early. We pull up in the driveway, and I'm in tears at this point. I'm unsure of exactly what this feeling is that I'm experiencing, and I didn't know how to handle it. So then I went inside, and my stepdad laughed at me. Every time I would sniffle, he would laugh and mock me. He didn't talk to me about it at all. He just laughed. This is when I realized that my stepdad did not care about me, and the paternal guidance that I needed was not going to come from him. Thankfully, my grandpa was there every step of the way to assist with that. As the years went on, just more and more, I realized that he didn't care, and then eventually, something happened. Divorce. That thought came into my head, and it was the only thing that I was hoping for, and it came true. They split up after several years of being together, and they had 2 kids, who are my siblings that I love oh so dearly. Now, as a freshman in high school, the guy's out of the picture. Amazing. But now there was a void that my mom needed filled. I had 2 younger siblings. She needed help around the house. So I stepped up and took on some of that responsibility. If she needed a babysitter, I was there. And I learned a lot about taking care of kids and raising kids. And I'm telling you, I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I was a pretty bomb babysitter. I was cool. The thing was, I genuinely wanted to help out with my siblings. I recognized that they were going through something that I had gone through, but the difference is, my upbringing, I don't really remember having my biological father in the picture, but for them, they remember him so clearly. They know what life is like having both parents under one roof. I wanted to be a part in softening the blow for them, just like my grandparents stepped in to soften the blow for me. I wanted to be a part of their support system. I always have. I grew very close to my siblings. I mean, they're everything to me. But my time at home would not last forever. It was high school graduation time, and I had received my acceptance letter a few days later. It was time for me to go, 200 miles away. It sucked. But it was also great. College gave me so many experiences, and I went through so many different situations, and these are things that I've learned so much from, like life lessons, street smarts, book smarts. These are things that I will remember for the rest of my life. The independence away from all that responsibility really gave me a chance to define who I am and explore my interests. Like with YouTube, for example, that's something that I had never thought about pursuing until college. I had room to grow as a person and it was amazing. My grandparents and I grew closer than ever. I mean, we would talk almost daily. I would talk to my grandma about things that were going on, and if my grandpa even heard the slightest ounce of stress, he would make an effort and go out of his way to make another phone call later on and talk to me himself. This was a huge deal for me because I knew he was not a mobile person. He wasn't someone that could easily move around. Like I said, the arthritis, it had taken a lot of toll over the years, and he had a hard time getting around. So just knowing that he would get up out of the chair, walk across the room, and then his arthritis, he wouldn't be able to hit the phone numbers very well, just knowing that he went through all that effort means everything to me. But the fact that even a slight inconvenience in my day warranted him to go through all that effort to talk to me, I can't even describe how that made me feel. So it's time for another graduation. This time I have my senior exhibition up. It's my art show. You know, I went through a graphic design program and I hung up all my best work for everyone to see, the world. And I was really thrilled that my family would be able to see it. A couple of days before graduation, I find out that my grandparents can't make it. I was very understanding of what was going on. My grandpa had difficulties making it to my cousin's graduation, which was only about an hour and 15 minutes from their home. Car rides are not his best friend, and to get from their house to my university took about 4.5 hours. There's no way he's gonna make that. So with graduation comes finding a job. I mean, you have to, it's a job. I was rejected many times, and with every rejection, he was there to support me. My grandma and grandpa genuinely believed in me, and I landed my first big boy job. So I went to work, made money, went to work, made money, went to work, made money. Grandpa falls ill. Christmas Eve 2017, he gets hospitalized. Grandpa isn't doing well. He's visibly drained of all of his energy, and it's obvious that he's not feeling right. Nobody knows what's going on with him. All we can do is be there for him. We brought gifts to Grandpa in the hospital on Christmas Day just so we could bring the celebration and bring the family together for him. And we tried our best to make sure that he was comfortable with the situation. Christmas passes and we all have lives that have to go on. So I go to work, visit Grandpa. Every day is a different day. Some days he was alert and he would have conversations with us. Other days, he would be asleep the whole time. It was complete chance. Go to work, visit Grandpa. Go to work, visit Grandpa. One evening, it's just he and I in the room. I try to have a conversation with him just to lift up his spirits because he's been there for me during all of my hard times, so the least I could do is be there for him in his hard time. But he interrupts our conversation to say one thing. He tells me, "Dante, I don't think I'm going to make it out of here." And I was silent. I didn't know how to respond. I had no idea how to respond. I felt like I had just gotten punched in the chest. Why was I speechless? Because in my gut, I had the same feeling. I stayed with him for another hour until visiting hours were over, and then I went in my car to go home and immediately called my fiance, who was my girlfriend at the time, and I lost it. I broke down. I tried my hardest to stay, very stable and very secure and very just straight-faced for my grandpa because I knew that he needed a constant in his moment of need, and I knew that I could be that for him. But when I got in that car, I just lost it. I wanted to stay strong for him. Go to work, visit Grandpa. Go to work, visit Grandpa. I go visit the hospital again, and I see my aunts, my mom, and my grandma sitting in the room. My grandpa is asleep. The doctor walks in. She tells us what's going to happen from here. He had the final stages of congestive heart failure, and with that, your heart doesn't beat as well as it should. So fluid gets backed up in your chest, and it makes it more difficult to breathe. Thankfully, there's a water pill that can help with this, that can flush out the liquid, and it can, keep that from building up too much. But there's another problem. His kidneys are also failing. I believe it was stage 4 of kidney failure. His kidneys could not handle being on that medication for a long period of time. Congestive heart failure, failing kidneys. What does all of this mean? It means that you can't have both. There isn't a solution. They give him a time of about a couple weeks. From that moment on, I had no idea what was going to happen. And at that moment, whenever the news was broken to us, I felt the need to stay strong again. And it didn't fully process in my head the news that I had just received. So it was hard. It was very difficult to try to stay straight-faced and then go back to work like nothing had happened. He gets transferred to hospice at this point, so it's just rinse and repeat. Go to work, visit Grandpa. Go to work, visit Grandpa. Days are still a hit or miss. Some days he's alert and talks to us, and other days he's asleep. Go to work, visit Grandpa. go to work, visit Grandpa. The nurses inform us that he's going to be taken off of the medication. So they take him off the medication, and he slips into a coma. The nurses warned us that this would probably happen once they took him off. A few days later, it's my aunt's birthday. So we met at a local restaurant to go eat, and then we went back to the hospice to eat cake. And I saw Grandpa for the first time that day, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He was pale. He was very skinny. And he had his breathing was doing this thing that they call rattling. And it's whenever your throat muscles relax and there's secretions in your neck, or in your throat, I should say, and it causes like a rattling sound. And it's one of the common telltale signs that death is going to be happening within a few days or a few hours. So everyone went to the kitchen to eat cake. I stayed back with my grandma and fiance in the room. I wanted to tell my grandpa a few things because he had been asleep for a couple days and he knew that his time was up. We all knew that his time was up. We all knew whenever he got into hospice. So once he was off the medication, he was at it for like about a week, and we all didn't know why. And I felt like he was holding on to something. So I grabbed his hands and I told him that everything is going to be okay. He always cared so much about me, and he cared so much about my mom because earlier in the year, she had gotten a breast cancer diagnosis. So I told him that everything was going to be okay and it was going to work out. I had myself a big boy job, and I had myself a lovely fiance that I don't know how I got her. I told him that he didn't have to worry. That he didn't have to worry about my mom because I would be there for her. And he wouldn't have to worry about Grandma because we have a big family that's here to support her. I wanted him to feel comfort because I felt like he was holding on for something more. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I felt like he needed that additional closure. And that's why it meant so much for me to speak to him about that. So I went to go eat some cake in the kitchen, and, everything was great. The cake was actually pretty dang good. It was like, I can't actually remember what cake it was, but it was a really good cake. So we returned to the room about 10 minutes later, and everybody that was in the hospice center was in this room. Like, the entire family that was in the building was in that room. And within minutes of us walking back in, my grandpa stopped breathing. And that's whenever silence fell upon the room. We were all in disbelief because it was so peaceful. And it took us all several minutes for us to process exactly what was happening. So then we rushed to get the nurse in there, and she's like searching for a pulse, searching for something. And then I just see the look on her face that she was just looking for just a little sign of life. I just saw it fall on her face that she had given up all hope and lost it. All I could do was grab my fiance and just let it out, and I just broke down because the thing that I had been staying strong for was him, and he was gone. So there was so much built up that I had to release. I was broken, and at that moment, it really felt like I lost my dad. Exactly 1 year ago from this upload date is the day that he passed. That is why I wanted this video to go live on that specific day. And I never really had closure. I never really took time to let it sink in and process. My mind has still been in this mindset that I need to stay strong for him and just stay strong about it. I mean, he wouldn't want me to sit and be upset about losing him. He wouldn't want me to be happy for all the memories that we had shared. He wouldn't want me to celebrate all of the contributions and investments he made in me. He stepped up to the plate to fill a position that he was not required to. He is my dad. And there's a very big difference between being a dad and a father. Being a father doesn't immediately grant you the title of being a dad. It's like a promotion that you have to earn. Being a dad means involvement in your child's life. My father did not do that. And honestly, I am okay with that. I have grown so much based on my upbringing, and he has given me a perfect example of what not to do and how to not be a dad. He also showed me what it takes to be one. Now you're probably thinking that there's going to be like a reveal like, oh my god, I'm about to be a dad, but mom, calm down. No, I can't put into words how thankful I am for my grandpa. Like, there's so many things that he's done for me. I really wanted to stay strong for this video too, but obviously that's not going to happen. He did so much for me, and he stepped up to the plate when he really didn't have to. And he did so much. He taught me so many life lessons, and he's my dad. And I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to have someone like him in my life to look up to. And it was really hard visiting every day because I had to put my life on pause for like an entire week. So, but looking back at it, I don't regret spending every single day with him for the world. I am so happy that I did that. Grandpa, if you're watching this, if you somehow learned how to work technology, just know that I love you. So what do you guys think about this story? I mean, now that it's out there in the open, how do you guys feel? Have you guys been through something similar? Have you been through a similar upbringing? I mean, let me know what your opinion is in the comments below. So that's where I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up this video. So thank you all for watching. And as always, the most important part, have yourself a blessed day. Now, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I'll float the subscribe button right here. And over here, I'll float some more content. If you wanna look at like a happier video, I highly encourage you to do so. But yeah, that's where I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up. So I will see you guys in the next episode. And thank you so much for watching.